They didn't just fire me. They humiliated me, spit on my loyalty, and handed my job to a spoiled brat who couldn't spell logistics if you spotted him the first 7 letters. I spent 10 damn years building that company from the ground up. 10 years of skipped holidays, 3 a.m. calls, and saving their asses more times than I can count. And the thanks I got? A security escort out the door so Carl's incompetent nephew could sit in my chair and pretend he earned it. Before we dive into how I destroyed the man who did this to me, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss stories like this. Real, raw, and satisfying as hell. Let's rewind a bit. My name's Mike. I'm 39, divorced, no kids, and up until last year, I was the senior operations manager at a mid-sized logistics firm in Ohio. Not some flashy tech startup, not a soulless megacorp, just a solid business moving freight across the country. And I loved it. Not the job, per se. I'm not insane, but the challenge. The pressure. Solving problems in real time, coordinating drivers, managing delays, negotiating contracts. I was good at it. Really good. In fact, I was the guy Carl, our CEO, used to call his right hand. Every major client went through me. I helped us land 3 of our 5 biggest contracts. I redesigned our routing system, which cut costs by 18% the first year. I even trained half the department heads. Carl praised me constantly. Hell, I even got a plaque once. A plaque. That should have been the first red flag. Carl was your typical good OL boys club executive. Slick hair, expensive suits, always cracking dad jokes that weren't funny. He didn't know the first thing about logistics. He inherited the company from his father and treated it like a damn country club. But for a long time, that didn't matter, because people like me kept things running. Then came Brandon. Brandon is Carl's sister's son. Fresh out of some overpriced business school, wearing $500 shoes and acting like he owned the place. He showed up at our department like he was the second coming of Bezos. 0 experience, 0 humility, and 0 clue what we actually did. Carl introduced him like, he's gonna shadow you, Mike. Learn the ropes. He's family. I didn't love it, but fine. I've trained dozens of people. So I gave him a fair shot. That was my second mistake. The guy didn't take notes. He showed up late, asked the same questions over and over. I'd walk him through a client strategy, and he'd be scrolling TikTok. I reported it to HR, politely. Just documented it. Cover my own ass. Weeks passed. Brandon kept screwing up, and I kept fixing it. One day, he called a longtime client the wrong company name on a Zoom call. Another time, he promised a delivery timeline we couldn't meet, which nearly lost us the account. And still, Carl kept defending him. He's young, give him time. Right. Then came the meeting. It was a Tuesday. Carl asked me to step into his office, real quick. The look on his face was smug, like he'd just farted and was waiting for applause. I sat down, and he said, Mike, we're restructuring, cutting costs. Your position's being phased out. Just like that. No warning. No thank you. No severance. I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed. Then I saw the HR rep standing in the corner, silent as a statue. My stomach dropped. You're letting me go? I asked. After everything? Carl shrugged. It's not personal. Oh, but it was. It was very personal. Because that Friday, Brandon was introduced as the new head of strategic operations. My title, my job, my clients. They even gave him my damn parking spot. I wish I could tell you I walked out with dignity, but no, I was numb. Humiliated. They had security walk me out like I was a criminal. My coworkers just stood there, too stunned to speak. Some of them looked away. A few mouthed, I'm sorry. I went home that day and didn't get out of bed for 2 days. 10 years, gone. Just like that. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was broken. But that didn't last long. See, you can't fake competence in my industry for long. And Brandon? He was about to prove exactly why I was the one holding that company together. And when the cracks started to show, I'd be watching. Waiting. Because Carl didn't just fire me. He handed me the fuel I'd need to burn his empire to the ground. You ever get fired so hard it feels like you've been erased? That's what it felt like. One day I'm running ops, juggling million-dollar accounts, respected, relied on. And the next, I'm just a ghost with a cardboard box and a non-disclosure agreement. They didn't even let me say goodbye. No farewell lunch, no handshake. No, thanks for everything, Mike. Just gone. The silence afterward was the worst. The kind that makes your house feel too big. I'd sit on the edge of my bed, scrolling job boards, refreshing my inbox like it was some slot machine that never paid out. Rejection after rejection. Apparently, when you've worked at the same place for 10 years, employers assume you're either too loyal to leave again or too stuck in your ways to learn anything new. Meanwhile, my savings were disappearing faster than dignity at an open mic night. Rent, car payments, health insurance now that I wasn't covered. It added up fast. I even sold my old motorcycle, my midlife crisis ride, just to keep the lights on. But the real gut punch came 2 weeks later. I was grabbing groceries when I ran into Jenna, one of the junior account managers I used to mentor. We chatted awkwardly for a bit, and then she hesitated and said, "I'm really sorry, Mike. It's a mess without you." I raised an eyebrow. She leaned in, looked around like she was afraid someone might be listening, and said, "Brandon lost the Record Tech account." That stopped me cold. Record Tech was one of our crown jewels, $10 million a year, and my personal baby. I built that relationship from scratch. Flew out twice to meet the CEO, handled a disaster shipment during a snowstorm, even remembered their CFO's kid's birthday. Brandon lost it? After 2 weeks? Jenna nodded. He told them they could switch to a cheaper freight partner without clearing it with finance. It backfired. They pulled everything. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was inevitable. That night, for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt sharp, focused. See, Carl thought he fired an employee. What he didn't realize is that he created a threat, a real one. Because he didn't just fire a guy, he fired the man who built the client relationships, knew the logistics systems inside and out, and had a better reputation in the industry than anyone in his C-suite. And I still had contacts. I went to my closet, pulled out the beat-up old briefcase I hadn't touched since the pandemic, and started sorting through old contracts, notes, emails. Not to break the NDA, I'm not stupid, but to remind myself who I was. And how much value I'd built that was mine, not Carl's. That night, I got a call that lit the fire for good. It was Sarah, Record Tech's logistics director. She didn't waste time. "Mike, are you working anywhere yet? We miss your team. We've been burned, and honestly, if you ever go solo, we'd talk." My heart skipped. She was serious. "I'm working on something," I said, bluffing. She laughed. "Well, let me know when it's real." After that call, I sat there in my tiny kitchen, staring at the steam rising off a cup of instant ramen, and smiling like a madman. I had nothing, but I had leverage. And in the right hands, leverage is worth more than money. I didn't sleep much that night. Instead, I started making a list. Not of people I could hurt, but of people I could help. Clients who trusted me, former coworkers who'd been treated like garbage, vendors who respected my word. I wasn't just going to get even. I was going to build something better. Not for revenge, but because I knew I could. And because Carl had no idea just how deep the hole he'd just dug really was. You ever feel something snap, not in a bad way, but in a focused, laser-locked kind of way? That was me, 3 weeks post-firing, sitting at my kitchen table with a legal pad and a $0 bank balance. I'd spent years building other people's dreams. Now I was done building for anyone but myself. That call from Sarah? It lit the fuse. But it wasn't just about one client. It was about everything Carl took from me, my career, my dignity, my name on those contracts. He may have owned the company, but the relationships? Those were mine. And legally, there wasn't a damn thing stopping me from using them. I dusted off my old employee contract, scanned every line like a lawyer. Sure, the NDA was airtight. I couldn't share company secrets or proprietary systems. But there was one very important detail. I could reach out to any clients I'd personally brought in. As long as I didn't use insider documents or steal protected data, I was free to compete. And man, did I plan to compete. I called my brother Dave that night. He runs a small IT firm and had always told me to ditch the suits and go solo. I filled him in on what happened. When I mentioned Record Tech was interested if I went independent, he didn't even hesitate. "I'll loan you $5,000 to get started," he said. "Don't pay me back until you're winning." That $5,000 was everything. I bought a refurbished laptop, registered an LLC, Ironclad Logistics, and turned my garage into mission control. No desk. I used a folding table. No office chair. I stole the one from my gaming setup. I was scrappy, but I had something Carl's bloated company didn't. Speed, hunger, and nothing left to lose. Then I made the first real move. I called Sarah back. Ironclad Logistics, I said, trying to sound way more confident than I felt. We're officially in business. You said you were burned. Let me fix that. She didn't even hesitate. Within a week, I had a short-term contract in hand, $30K to handle a series of emergency shipments Record Tech couldn't risk leaving with Carl's clowns. I coordinated everything myself, worked out of that garage, barely slept. And it worked. Deliveries landed early. No mistakes. Zero excuses. Word spread. Fast. Next up, I called Jenna, the same coworker who told me about Brandon screwing up. You happy there? I asked her. She laughed bitterly. You know I'm not. I offered her a freelance role. She took it the same day. We were building. One of the best moments early on came when I got an email, completely unsolicited, from a former vendor rep. Heard you started something new. We always preferred working with you anyway. Let us know if we can help. That's when I realized Carl had inherited power. I had earned respect. And in logistics, respect is currency. Within a month, Ironclad had 4 active contracts. Nothing massive, but stable. Record Tech signed on for a longer-term deal. Jenna brought in another 2 clients from her old network. And me? I was pulling 18-hour days, eating out of the same microwave, and smiling the whole time. But I wasn't done. Because while I was rebuilding from the ashes, Carl's empire was starting to rot from the inside. Brandon had now botched 2 other major accounts. Word in the industry was spreading. Carl's firm was off its game. I didn't gloat. Not yet. This wasn't about ego. It was about timing. You don't punch a man while he's standing strong. You wait until the foundation is cracking, and then you bring the whole damn house down. There's something addictive about momentum. Once it starts rolling, you'll do anything to keep it alive. That's where I was. Every morning, I'd wake up before the sun, chug 2 cups of gas station coffee, and dive headfirst into the chaos. It was ugly, it was scrappy, but it was mine. Ironclad Logistics started with just me in a garage and Jenna working part-time from her kitchen table. But by month 2, we were already growing. I brought on Marcus, an ex-colleague who quit Carl's company after Brandon tried to micromanage him on a shipment to Dallas and nearly caused a 6-figure loss. Marcus was sharp, loyal, and just as pissed off as I was. He didn't even negotiate salary. His exact words? Just let me help you crush that smug bastard. We formed a lean, fast-moving team. No corporate fluff. No weekly check-ins with no purpose. Just results. Our clients loved it. They said working with us felt human. One even told me, you guys care more in a week than your old company did in a year. And it showed. By month 3, we had 7 clients. Record Tech doubled their volume. Jenna secured a green tech company out of Denver that had just landed a major government contract. Suddenly, I was hiring freelance dispatchers, renting warehouse space, outsourcing freight. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. Meanwhile, Carl's house of cards was wobbling. I kept hearing whispers, through vendors, old coworkers, even clients that jumped ship. Brandon had botched another account, this time forgetting to schedule a pickup for a time-sensitive medical shipment. It sat in a warehouse for 2 days before someone noticed. The client? Gone. Carl tried to spin it as a systems error, but everyone knew. And the funniest part? They still hadn't replaced me with anyone competent. Brandon was technically VP of operations now, but he was just throwing buzzwords around in meetings while the real workers cleaned up his mess. Carl was too arrogant to admit failure, too blind to fix what was clearly falling apart. And that's when I realized I didn't need to destroy him. He was doing it for me. All I had to do was keep growing, keep building, and be there to catch the clients as they jumped off his sinking ship. One of those moments came out of nowhere. I was sitting in my garage, packing files for a new client, when I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was short. You don't know me, but I work in accounting at your old company. Carl's bleeding cash. If you're smart, stay ready. Just like that, I knew. The internal collapse had begun. It felt surreal. A few months ago, I was a discarded employee, humiliated and broke. Now, I had a growing team, steady revenue, and the wolves from Carl's own company were starting to whisper in my ear. Still, I didn't let the victory get to my head. Every day, I reminded myself, this isn't over. I didn't just want to win. I wanted Carl to feel it. I wanted him to watch everything he thought was untouchable slip through his fingers. So I doubled down. I invested in software to automate logistics tracking. I partnered with a branding agency to make Ironclad look like $1 million, even if we were running on pure caffeine and duct tape. I even had our logo etched onto my old pickup truck. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were coming for the crown. By month 4, Ironclad wasn't just surviving. We were turning heads. I wasn't trying to make noise, but the logistics world is small. People talk. And when clients talk, suppliers listen. And when suppliers talk, well, word gets around fast. I didn't need to run a smear campaign against Carl. He was doing it himself. Every week, I heard a new horror story. A missed shipment. A screwed-up invoice. A client who hadn't heard back in days. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, except I knew exactly how the train was built, and I could see which bolts were loose. Brandon was at the center of it all. From what I gathered through the grapevine, he'd gotten arrogant, drunk on power, started cutting corners to impress Carl, offering impossible discounts, overpromising on delivery times. The staff hated him. The board didn't trust him. But Carl? Still clinging to the family-first fantasy. Then came the domino I'd been waiting for. One of Carl's top 3 clients, Argus Tech, a massive electronics manufacturer, fired them. Flat out. Done. Why? Because Brandon rerouted one of their critical international shipments through a cheaper vendor without checking customs compliance. The cargo got held up at the port for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Argus lost a multi-million-dollar deal overseas because of it. The fallout was instant. Argus not only pulled their contract, they went public. A LinkedIn post from their operations VP didn't name Carl's company directly, but anyone in the industry knew who it was. It ended with the line, "We've since moved our business to a firm that values precision over politics." I nearly spilled my coffee when I saw that. Because guess who just signed a non-disclosure agreement with us that same week? Yep. Argus Tech Ironclad was officially big league now. That moment sent a ripple effect through the whole industry. Suddenly, companies that had been loyal to Carl were reaching out to me behind closed doors. Questions like, how fast can you scale? Are you hiring account managers? What's your onboarding process? I kept my answers calm, professional, but inside, I was practically bouncing off the walls. Meanwhile, Carl started spiraling. One of my sources, still working in his finance department, told me the company had missed 2 vendor payments and defaulted on a short-term logistics loan. They were hemorrhaging clients, morale was in the toilet, and Carl was clashing with the board. Then I got my personal favorite update. Brandon had tried to blame the Argus disaster on a junior analyst, someone fresh out of college. The analyst fought back, showed emails proving Brandon had made the call himself. The board sided with the analyst. Brandon exploded in a meeting. Threw a chair. Literally. Threw a damn chair. That story? Oh, it spread like wildfire. Carl tried to do damage control. He sent out a company-wide email about professionalism and learning from mistakes. But it was too late. Respect was gone. And when respect dies, business soon follows. That's when the lawsuit landed in my inbox. Yep. Carl's company tried to sue me. They claimed I'd stolen clients, used proprietary information, and sabotaged business relationships. I laughed out loud reading it. Not because it wasn't serious. I took it very seriously, but because it was desperate. Everything I'd done had been legal, strategic, and above board. My lawyer, an absolute pit bull, ripped their claims apart line by line. And the kicker? The court dismissed the case with prejudice, which meant Carl couldn't file it again. He tried to silence me. Instead, he handed me more publicity. After the ruling, several industry blogs picked up the story. Small startup defeats logistics giant in court. Clients loved it. They saw it as proof that Ironclad wasn't just fast and personal. We were tough. And Carl, he wasn't just bleeding anymore. He was drowning. 2 days after the lawsuit got thrown out, I got a message that stopped me cold. It was from Carter Jennings, the COO of Sentinel Freight, one of the top 5 logistics corporations in the country. These guys weren't just big, they were massive. Legacy clients. Billions in revenue. Carter's message was short but direct. I've been watching Ironclad. Impressive growth. Would like to discuss a potential acquisition. An acquisition? I reread the email 5 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I called Jenna. I called Marcus. Both of them had the same reaction. Holy crap. The next day, I took a Zoom meeting with Carter. He was sharp, polished, and respectful. Told me he'd been hearing a lot about us since the Argus Tech shift. Apparently, We were on the radar of several big firms, but Sentinel wanted first dibs. Then he dropped the number. 7 figures. They were offering over $1 million to buy out Ironclad Logistics. A clean acquisition. I'd stay on for 6 months as a transition consultant. After that, walk away with more money than I ever thought I'd see in one place. It was tempting. Insanely tempting. For a guy who'd been eating instant noodles in a garage not long ago, this was like being offered a yacht in the desert. I could pay off my brother's loan, buy a house, start over, live easy. But then Carter said something that hit me in the gut. Of course, we'd fold the brand into Sentinel. We have our own staff, our own ops. We'd take your top clients, reassign the accounts, and scale from there. There it was. The catch. They didn't want Ironclad. They wanted my clients, my people, my work. They'd gut the company, slap a new logo on it, and fire Jenna and Marcus before the ink dried. Everything we'd built, every late night, every small win, every hell yes moment would be swallowed whole and forgotten. I asked Carter for 48 hours to think. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling of my rented apartment, running numbers, imagining the freedom, but also hearing Jenna's laugh in the office, seeing Marcus high-five a junior dispatcher after a tricky delivery. I remembered what it felt like to be thrown out by someone who didn't care about loyalty. I remembered how much that hurt. And I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about doing it right. Carl built his empire on favors and lies. I was building mine on people. Trust. Reputation. Respect. I didn't want to be rich and empty. I wanted to win and still sleep at night. So I called Carter back and thanked him. Then I turned him down. He was surprised. Not mad, just surprised. He said I was one of the few people who ever walked away from that kind of money. And maybe that was true, but I had bigger plans. Meanwhile, Carl's company was circling the drain. After the lawsuit flop, several remaining clients jumped ship, citing instability and lack of leadership. Internally, staff were quitting in waves. I even got applications from their employees, people I'd never met, desperate to jump onto something solid. Brandon? Rumor had it he was on sabbatical. More like hiding. Carl was in damage control mode. He slashed salaries, paused all hiring, and even tried reaching out to vendors he'd ghosted years ago. But the industry had turned on him. No one was buying what he was selling. And me? I was just getting started. By month 6, I didn't just want Carl to fall. I wanted to make sure he never got back up. And to do that, I needed something more than steady growth or clever marketing. I needed a kill shot. That's when I got a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Alan Reyes, my old mentor. Alan was the guy who originally hired me 10 years ago, before Carl inherited the company and pushed him out. He'd since landed an executive role at Titan Line, a major player in West Coast logistics. Alan didn't waste time. Mike, he said, word is Carl's holding on to a handful of legacy contracts. Some of them are dirty, grandfathered in with crazy rates, zero accountability. They're ripe for the taking, but no one wants to touch them without a surgical approach. He paused. You've got the relationships. I've got the files. Want to team up? I didn't hesitate. Alan emailed me a list. 6 contracts Carl's company was still clinging to, big names, long-term clients, and, according to internal Titan Line chatter, unhappy ones. These clients had been locked into deals years ago and were paying bloated fees with minimal service. But loyalty, or fear of change, kept them stuck. That's where I came in. Over the next 3 weeks, I reached out to each of them. Quietly, carefully, never trashing Carl, just laying out facts. We were faster. We were transparent. We gave a damn. I didn't pitch them as a sales guy. I approached them as someone who understood. I showed them how much they could save, how smooth the transition would be, and how they'd get actual attention, not auto-responses from some burned-out intern. And it worked. One by one, the contracts started slipping from Carl's fingers. But I wasn't done yet. With Alan's help, I crafted a deal structure, a package offer. We'd onboard all 6 clients at once, giving them discounted rates and bundled services. The catch? They had to sign within a 48-hour window. The goal wasn't just to win their business. The goal was to gut Carl's last line of defense. And just as we launched the plan, Carl panicked. He suddenly started offering his clients desperate discounts. One client told me Carl personally called them, nearly begging them to stay, slashing their rate by 60%. But it was too little, too late. The clients had already seen the cracks, and now they had a better option. By the end of the week, all six signed. 6 massive contracts, gone from Carl's hands, straight into mine. The moment the last signature hit the paper, I stood in my garage, looked around at my makeshift office, and let out a laugh I didn't even recognize. We'd done it. But karma wasn't finished. 2 days later, Carl's company defaulted on a service-level agreement tied to one of those contracts. It triggered a penalty clause that cost them over $500,000. Their credit line froze. Their board, furious, called an emergency meeting. And in the middle of it, Carl tried to pin it on me. Rumor has it he stood in that boardroom screaming, red in the face, blaming a rogue employee who's been sabotaging the company from the outside. Someone asked, "You mean the guy you fired?" Ouch. That meeting ended with Carl being suspended from all operational duties. Publicly, they called it a temporary leadership shift. Privately, Carl had just been dethroned. But I wasn't finished yet. Not until I sent one final message. Not a threat. Not a lawsuit. Something much colder. And much more permanent. Carl had built his empire on control. But now, he couldn't even control his own calendar. The news hit the industry like a grenade. Carl temporarily removed from leadership. Everyone knew what that meant. And inside his crumbling company, the whispers turned into open panic. Vendors were pulling out. Clients were ghosting. Employees were flooding job boards. Some even applied to Ironclad using their company email addresses. It was beyond repair. And Carl, well, Carl was finally tasting the humiliation he used to serve so generously to everyone else. That's when I got the email. It was from him. "Mike, can we talk? Just us. No lawyers." I stared at the screen for a good 5 minutes. The man who had once fired me without warning, tossed me out like garbage, and replaced me with his clown nephew, now wanted a private meeting. Not to negotiate. Not to threaten. To talk. I agreed. Out of curiosity. Maybe. Spite. Definitely. But also closure. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about standing over the wreckage and knowing I hadn't just gotten even. I'd won. We met at a quiet coffee shop off the interstate. Neutral ground. He was already sitting when I arrived, wearing sunglasses indoors and nursing a half-empty cup of black coffee. He looked small. Not physically. He was still the same tall, broad-shouldered guy. But the confidence? Gone. Replaced by something hollow. He stood when I walked in, offered his hand. I didn't shake it. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, voice low. I sat. Said nothing. He sighed. "Look, I made some bad calls. Trusted the wrong people. I thought I was doing what was right for the company." I raised an eyebrow. "You fired your best employee to make room for your idiot nephew." He flinched. "I know. And believe me, I'm paying for it." He paused. Looked down. "Mike, we're sinking. If there's anything you can do, any connections, any way to help me rebuild, I'm not too proud to ask." There it was. The moment. The man who used to sit behind a giant mahogany desk barking orders at people like me was now begging for help. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and looked him dead in the eye. "You had everything. Power. Clients. A team that would have followed you anywhere. And you burned it for nepotism and ego." He didn't argue. Just nodded. I let the silence hang. Then, quietly, I said, "No." His head snapped up. "No. No. I won't help you. I won't throw you a rope after you burn my bridge. You didn't just ruin your business. You ruined people. Good people. And now you want mercy?" He sat back, stunned. I stood, tossed a $5 bill on the table. "Good luck, Carl. You're going to need it." And I walked out. Did I feel good? Yes. Did I feel guilty? Not even a little. That same week, Carl's company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Their biggest creditors called in debts. Their board resigned en masse. Brandon? Fired, finally. Rumor has it he tried to sue the company for emotional distress. No one cared. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party. I just went back to work. Ironclad was stronger than ever. We had expanded to 3 regional hubs, hired 20 full-time employees, and secured a multi-year government contract Jenna landed with her green tech clients. We were no longer a startup. We were the new industry standard. And Carl? He became a cautionary tale. People still talk about the fall of his company in logistics circles like it was folklore. No one says his name. Just, remember what happened to that guy. Yeah, I remember. Because I'm the one who made it happen. People always imagine revenge as loud. Explosions, shouting matches, public takedowns. But the real revenge? It's silent. It's when your enemy looks around and realizes the empire they built is gone, and you were the one holding the last brick. That was me. 2 months after Carl's company declared bankruptcy, the building that used to be their headquarters went up for auction. That ugly gray monolith where I'd worked for 10 years, the place they threw me out of like I was nothing, now sat half empty, with foreclosure signs taped to the windows. I didn't plan to bid on it. Honestly, I'd almost driven past without thinking. But then I saw it. Carl's name, still on the front plaque, still trying to cling to something. And in that moment, a cold calm washed over me. I parked the truck, walked inside, and asked the realtor for the paperwork. The next day, Ironclad Logistics became the legal owner of the former headquarters of my ex-boss. And the first thing I did? Had the plaque ripped off the front wall and tossed in a dumpster. We moved in 2 weeks later. Our entire team, Jenna, Marcus, the dispatchers, even some of the new hires we pulled from Carl's sinking ship, stood in the lobby, jaws dropped. This was the building, their old prison, our new kingdom. I walked up to the front door, unlocked it, and said, "Welcome to Ironclad HQ." But that wasn't the real revenge. That came a week later, when I got an envelope in the mail. It was from Carl, a handwritten letter. His tone was polite, too polite, the kind of polite that only comes from a man with nothing left to lose. He asked, again, if I'd be open to a meeting. Not about saving him this time. He wanted to explore employment opportunities. Said he'd do anything, even junior work, just to get back in the game. I reread that line 5 times. Carl, offering to work under me. And here's the part that shocks people. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. I hung the letter, framed it, actually, and put it in the break room above the coffee machine, right next to our Employee of the Month wall. Every new hire sees it. We call it the exhibit. Just a quiet reminder of where ego, greed, and bad leadership will get you. Ironclad, meanwhile, was thriving. The rebranding was complete. We had a modern workspace, a killer team, and clients who sang our praises in every industry review. Jenna headed operations. Marcus ran logistics. I handled strategy and mentoring new managers. One day, while walking through the building, I found myself staring out the same window I used to glance through on my worst days. Back when I thought being fired was the end. Now, it was the beginning. Carl's company had collapsed. He'd been removed, humiliated, and ignored by the very people he once ruled over. His nephew was gone. His investors disappeared. His reputation turned to ash. And me? I'd taken back everything he tried to steal, my name, my dignity, my career, and turned it into something stronger. People say revenge is sweet. But you know what's better? Building something so successful your enemies become irrelevant. That's the coldest burn of all. Life after revenge is quieter. Not empty, just still. No more chaos. No more second-guessing every decision. No more sleepless nights wondering how to survive the next month. Just calm. Just purpose. These days, my mornings start with coffee on the rooftop of Ironclad HQ. The same rooftop I never used when I worked under Carl because I was too damn busy cleaning up other people's messes. Now it's mine. Every tile, every key, every late-night light left on by the dispatch team. Ours. I don't chase every deal anymore. I pick the right ones. I don't run on stress and fear. I run on pride, clarity, and the kind of stubborn peace that only comes from knowing you earned everything you have. And I never take it for granted. Jenna now leads the East Coast Division. She's one of the sharpest operators in the industry, period. Marcus oversees our expanding freight network. He just hired his own team last month and finally stopped calling me boss and started calling me partner. We brought in new blood too. Hungry, honest, sharp minds who want to build something better. I spend most of my days mentoring them, making sure they never have to go through what we went through. But more than anything, I'm happy, genuinely. And that, more than bankrupting Carl, more than buying his building or framing his desperate letter, is what truly made this worth it. The revenge? That was for the old me. The man who stood outside that office one rainy Tuesday with a box of his belongings and no idea what came next. But the growth? The new me? That was earned. And if you're still listening, maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe someone underestimated you, disrespected you, used you, and maybe you're wondering if it's even worth fighting back. Let me tell you something. It is. But don't fight to hurt them. Fight to build you. Because success, Real success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Now tell me, did I do the right thing? Would you have done the same in my shoes? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey, hit that like button, subscribe for more wild stories like this, and share it with someone who really needs a reminder that karma's got a long memory. Until next time, stay sharp, stay kind, and never forget your worth.